This is the Barroom Network, and the following program is suitable for all audiences.
Guys, it's Peggy Kaczynski. I retired early from my 20-something career as a sportscaster, covering the Bulls, the Bears, the Blackhawks, the Cubs, the White Sox, and really every other college and high school team in Chicago. So what do you do after that? Well, you start a podcast. That's what I did with my teenage son, Jason. And the result is The Sportscaster and Her Son. Yes, I'm the baby boomer, a mom. We don't get along. We don't have a lot in common, but we both share a love for sports. And we always have great sports conversation. Even better, our guests in the interviews. So come check us out. We're on Podbean and the Barroom Network, or really wherever you get your audio. The Sportscaster and Her Son podcast. See you there.
What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Bulls 101. We just switched for a second. I was really happy to be Laro Golden for just a second there. What's up, Laro? How you doing?
Man, I'm good, man. Just happy, man. I'm happy for this show. I'm happy that that we're continuing to get some love from everybody, and I'm happy that I'm with you on this show, man. It's been a blast, man. And let's get tonight going, man. I'm ready.
Oh, I'm excited for tonight. We had an incredible guest this week, David Kaplan. If you guys haven't heard of David Kaplan, you just don't know Chicago sports. Salim, what's up, man? Chris Laro, #1 fan, always in here supporting us. Appreciate it, Salim. So yeah, we had Cap on earlier today. We got recorded an interview for you guys to enjoy, and he was really gracious with his time. Gave us more than an hour of his time. Had some amazing stories. You guys are really going to want to hear this one. So we're going to get right into it. We're going to go to the interview, and you guys can enjoy it right now. All right. Now we're welcoming in the main event. I don't know if you guys can ever talk about Chicago sports without mentioning the name David Kaplan, 3-time Emmy Award winner. He's on ESPN, NBC Sports Chicago. He used to be on WGN, all over. So welcome so much. And we're so glad to have you, David. And we can call you Cap, right?
You can call me. I'll just answer to just about anything.
Sparkles.
There you go. It's an honor to be on with you guys.
Well, thanks so much for joining Bulls 101. I know Laro and I are really happy to have you. It's been a crazy year for the Chicago Bulls, which is what we cover primarily. I know you're all over Chicago sports in general, but we wanted to really focus in on the Bulls tonight and talk about how this last year has gone. There's been a seismic change, obviously, in the front office, which I remember last year you had kind of hinted that there would be changes coming to the front office. John Paxson obviously went to management and said that he was ready to step down. It was time for a change. And Michael Reinsdorf led the search to bring in Arturas Karnisovas out of Denver. And then he, in turn, hired Mark Eversley as his general manager. And then they went out and got Billy Donovan as their coach. So we started this season off, I think, at least for me as a Bulls fan, with high optimism. There's finally some changes. We felt like we were finally getting a coach in that was, an upgrade from Jim Boylan. We could see what the development is going to look like. Mark Eversley talked about how there was only one development guy in the whole organization, and they were trying to change that. And so now we've, on paper, it looks pretty good, right? From the beginning of the year where we had no all-stars, now we've got 2 on the roster. in Zach LaVine and Nikola Vucevic. But there's also been, I don't know, the last month or so has been a little more depressing as a Bulls fan to see after the trade that was made for Nikola Vucevic, the kind of the downturn, and now Zach LaVine is out with the health and safety protocol. So just wanted to kind of get your feel about these changes in the front office and where you see the Bulls organization having gone over the last year.
Well, first of all, when I said that, it was November of 19, and I said, I promise you, there's big changes coming to the Chicago Bulls. I was holding a maid hand. It's like, holding a royal flush in Vegas. I had as good a source as you can have telling me, yeah, John is going to stay in the organization. Here's how it all went down. John went to Michael and said, I've had my chance. It didn't get done. We need new blood in the front office. Wow. And Michael said, we got to go to my dad. My dad makes that call. And so they met with Jerry, and Jerry said, if you're staying in the organization, not in a position of decision-making any longer, but you're going to be around as an ambassador and a consultant, you're my guy, then if that's what you guys think is best, I'm good with it. And so John and Michael started to make calls around the league. Who are the best young executives? Who are guys looking to take that next step? And everything kept coming back to the guy at Oklahoma City, Sam Presti.
Right.
That's the guy they wanted. Okay. And then he's making almost $9 million a year in Oklahoma City. But he did his homework on the Bulls, and then COVID hit. And all of a sudden, you got zero revenue coming in. We don't know when we're getting back on the court. And the guy in Oklahoma City is like, yeah, I'm out. I'm not right now. With all that's going on, I'm out. And to get him and have to pay him probably $10 million a year to get him to leave, you're asking him to walk away from a guaranteed deal he had there where he's the guy making almost $9 million to come to Chicago where the cost of living jumps up dramatically. Yeah. What do you have to pay him? $10 million for 10 years? I mean, that's $100 million commitment, and you haven't hired a GM, you haven't fired your coach and eaten his salary, and you haven't gone out and hired another coach. And then Arturas was also a guy they really liked a lot. And Arturas interviewed, they talked to a few other people, and then Arturas clearly was the best guy on the board. He was ready to take the next step from Denver to Chicago. And then he brings in Mark Eversley, who I think is really wildly connected. But when they got here, they looked at the infrastructure and went, you got to be kidding me. Like, think back, when was the last time the Bulls had good player development? That was when Tom Thibodeau was the head coach. Yeah, right. DJ Augustine, Etwan Moore, all these different guys that were just, okay. All of a sudden, they're pretty good players. Yeah. Because Tom Thibodeau is a phenomenal basketball coach. That's his life. Tom likes to do three things. He likes to eat. He likes to work like a dog, watching tape and helping guys get better. And he's actually a power lifter in the gym. He likes to lift weights. That is, Tibbs isn't married. Tibbs doesn't play golf. Tibbs doesn't have a hobby. He's basically the late Rick Majerus was the same guy. Wow. Basketball is their mistress. It's their wife. It's their best friend. That's who Tom is. Tom can also be tough to get along with because he shows up at the office and he doesn't play. Tom, and I've told him this. He's a dear friend of mine. He doesn't know how to play the game that when Larry walks by him and says, hey, good morning, coach. How are you? He's not being an asshole. Can I curse on your show?
Yeah.
Not being an asshole when he just keeps his head down and keeps walking. That's who he is. He's like a savant. Bill Belichick is the same exact guy, and they're best of friends. But he was difficult for secretaries or, if management comes to you, if Gar Forman says, why don't you try playing that guy in that role? What Tom should have said was, all right, let's give it 5, 8, 10 minutes in the next game. And if it doesn't work, I move on. He's just, that's not going to work. I'm not doing that. And all of a sudden, the relationship starts to become like this. So does Tom bear some culpability? Yeah, I think he would tell you I probably should have played better in the sandbox. He leaves. Well, now they make a big deal. They hired Sean Respert, the former Michigan State star. He was the player development staff. That was it.
Yep.
Most player development staffs are 4, 5, 6 people that I'm working with you and he's working with him, and we're going to make sure this guy's working with another guy. Like they needed a much better infrastructure. And I think that's what they're building. But none of this is going to happen overnight. Like, I don't want them to make the playoffs. And I said that at the start of the season. I want them in the draft, hoping to get lucky. Now they've traded their pick, but it's top 4 protected. So if they can catch a break like they did a year ago and end up in the top 4, well, then maybe that's where, if you get really lucky, you get Jalen Suggs or Cade Cunningham. There's your point guard. Now you can take that cap space and go get another veteran player. And if you don't end up in the top 4, okay, it is what it is. Go get a freaking point guard. You have to have someone who organizes your offense. Yeah. They don't have that. Satoransky, he's a nice 8th guy in your rotation. Kobe White's not a point guard. That's just not who he is. Yeah. Nice, talented player. Maybe 3-4 years from now he will be. They don't have that kind of time to wait. Exactly. So they've got to go get somebody.
Yeah, I was on another show, and I said to the host there is I feel like AK and Mark, they have to figure out, like you just kind of alluded to what I was thinking in terms of we don't have the time, but like they're still trying to develop Kobe. They're still trying to, all right, Kobe, come on. We know you can get it. Come on. But it's like what he's good at is what could help a team, right now. Exactly. Is coming off the bench and just telling Kobe, look, I want you to just go out there and try to go crazy. Let's go get some buckets. I'm going to give you the ball. We're going to give you a pick and roll. I want you to just go crazy, but as of right now, I mean, he's just not a point, like you say, he's just not a point guard. There's been plenty of times where we'll have a nice little momentum going. And maybe it's a time where we just run some offense. Let's get some offense going. Let's get a good shot. He'll come down and heat check, pull. And it's like, these are things where at some point you start to see if a guy is starting to get it. And we haven't seen it yet. We haven't seen it click where it's like, okay, you know what? We can continue to do this because I think we're starting to see more. And I mean, now that we lost Zach, I kind of feel like, well, hey, you know what? Let's roll him out there and maybe we get into the top 4. Who knows? You know what I mean? But I guess my question is for you is when AK decided that him and Mark decided that Billy was the guy. What do you know about Billy? What are some things you've heard about Billy before he even became the Bulls head coach?
So I've known Billy since he was the assistant at Kentucky. Well, I've known Billy 30 years. I mean, close to it. He's the guy that was recruiting Antoine Walker. So I've known Billy a long time. Billy is an awesome, awesome basketball coach.
Right.
And when I started to hear rumors from friends of mine who are friends with Billy that he might leave Oklahoma City, I thought, all right, I know this is asking a lot. We're in a pandemic. I know Jerry he went out and hired Tony La Russa, and he's doing all this with the baseball, but it's all still coming out of his pockets.
Yeah. Right.
And I thought, please don't tell me you're going to keep Jim Boylan. Please don't tell me that. If you're a multi-billion-dollar franchise, okay, pay Jim his $1.5 million for 2 years, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. God bless him. Good luck to him. See him later. And then I started to hear when they got Arturas hired that Arturas was definitely going to move on Jim. And there were a lot of people frustrated in the Chicago area. Fans calling my shows. My producer, Danny Zetterman's like, how have they not fired Boylan yet? Because Arturas said, I am going to go through a comprehensive review of everything in this organization. They got rid of the trainer. They got rid of the head coach. They cleaned out the staff. That all costs money. All these people are under contract. And so you're asking Jerry, hey, can I pay $3 million off to the coach? Hey, can I buy out the trainer? Hey, is it okay? The 2 assistants each have 2 years left. Can I buy them out? And all of a sudden, you start stacking hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, and you are millions. Well, then if you're going to go get the right guy, Billy Donovan, who I was screaming, go get Billy Donovan. He's available. That's almost $6 million a year. And you still haven't improved the product on the floor. But what told me Arturas is the right guy was, so Billy makes the announcement, I'm leaving Orlando. Oklahoma City. He's going back to where he lives in the Orlando area. He lives in Gainesville. And his phone rings. He's driving back. His family's in Florida. He's been pretty much in a bubble until they were eliminated from contention to continue. And his phone rang. And Billy told me, phone rings. I'm like, I don't know that number. Hello. He said, Billy Donovan, this is Arturas Karnisovas. How you doing, man? He said, good, AK. What's up? He said, I hear you're leaving Oklahoma City. I am. He said, this is Tuesday. When are you going to be back in Florida? He said, I'm leaving tomorrow. I'll be in my house on Friday. He said, all right, I will be there Friday afternoon. He said, no. I haven't seen my family. I've been locked in this bubble. You got to give me a couple weeks, man. I got to see my wife and kids, and I just got to decompress. He said, Billy, one thing we don't have is time. I'm going to be there Friday. You need to meet with me. And he said, all right, fly down. Arturas walked in the house. They had a 4-hour meeting. They sat down and talked philosophy, and he said, okay, how much? Done. That's it. That's how quick it happened.
Wow, that's amazing.
And immediately told me, that's the executive I want. A guy who knows what he wants. He wants to shop, as my radio partner, Jonathan Hood, says, at the top shelf. Not, I can get this assistant down here that's really cheap. No. And they gave him a big contract, and they told him, you'll have every chance here to win an NBA championship. It's just going to take a little time.
Yeah. Kurt, let me get one more. So with your background, right, of scouting, coaching, can you kind of illustrate to like our listeners and the people that will be watching, like how hard is it as a coach to come in a season like this, right? You're trying to build your program, you're trying to get things going the way you want to go, and then at a point you start to see some things start to get better, but then boom, you get another big guy, another all-star into your team, and now you have to flip everything again. Now you have to start from almost ground zero in the middle of a season that has COVID, the compressed schedules. How, just from a little bit of your background, and maybe from some people that you've talked to, how hard and how, I guess, just how hard is it to get this to continue on the right, track, in terms of still developing guys, still trying to get plays and sets for Vooch and get Zach and him to really to mold in the middle of a season. How hard is it?
Brutal. It's brutal because, first of all, if you had a veteran point guard, like, why are the Phoenix Suns all of a sudden, they may not win the title, but they're really, really impressive. They're well coached. They made a coaching change, the one the Bulls probably should have made when they hired Boylan. Monty Williams would have been a great hire. Yeah. But everything happens for a reason, and now you got Billy Donovan. We're all good. They don't have a point guard. And when you bring a new big guy in and you want him to get involved in the offense, you're trying to tell Zach, hey, we're trying to take some of the load off you, but we really don't want you to be the primary ball handler. Well, I don't have a primary ball handler. So, Zach is trying to make plays, and then I hear people go, well, he turns it over too much. He doesn't have any help out there. I was watching the game. I think it was the Memphis game, not at home, the Memphis game in Memphis a couple Fridays ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, Vucevic is playing well. Zach LaVine's playing well, and nobody else on the freaking court can make a shot. Yeah. And when that happens, it's really difficult on a coach. Plus, there's no practice time. Yep. You're dealing with all the COVID stuff. So everything is just out of sorts. How do you put your sets in? How do you change everything? And then I don't have a veteran guy. Like, I'm going back to Phoenix. Who'd they sign in the offseason? Chris freaking Paul. Yeah. I know he's 36 years old. That guy's a Hall of Famer for a reason. And all of a sudden, he's getting Devin Booker better shots. He's getting DeAndre Ayton more involved. And all of a sudden, it's a whole lot better basketball team. So it's really, really difficult. We got to cut them a break and get this thing on solid ground, make some moves in the offseason, and see where this thing goes.
So, David, you made a couple of points here. The difficulty of doing that midseason. So I'm wondering, I'm not sure if you've heard or not, but why make that move for Vucevic now, right? When we could have had, let's say, if Lauri Markkanen gets a sign and trade in the summer, goes somewhere else, we bring in a point guard, a real point guard this time over the offseason. That Vucevic trade may have been available in the offseason, or maybe it wouldn't have been. But that's my question is, why make the move now, given what Laro said is all the difficulties of making this in-season change? Why make that move now, especially when you consider the fact that we were 10th. We were 10th in the standings. We've now dropped to 11th. We're 3-9 since the trade because of all these things. You have to, I don't know, I have to believe as a fan that they made that move partially to try and get Zach and Vooch into the playoffs, or at least some playoff experience this season. Obviously, it was a long-term move as well, but why the move now?
Because you don't know when superstars are going to become available, and that guy's a star. He may not be a top 5 player in the league. He's a top 20 player in the league. He's a 2-time All-Star. And I've talked to a couple of guys. In fact, I'm good friends with Rick Carlisle, and Rick said, we had no idea that guy was available. He said, no one in the league knew. He said, obviously, our tourists and the people in Orlando have a relationship. And so before they did anything, they said, hey, we're going to move this guy. If you're interested, let's get something done right now. It was not like there were no rumors that Nikola Vucevic was being moved. And all of a sudden, there are teams in the league going, why didn't you call us? We would have made a move for that guy. And does it really matter if they finish 10th, 11th, 9th, 8th? They're going to get filleted in the playoffs anyway because they're not good enough. So if a really good player becomes available at manageable money, yeah, all in. Let's go. Take it.
Gotcha. And it's funny you mentioned that because we've heard from reporters that AK is really patient and methodical. But you mentioned something. He knows what he wants and he goes and gets it.
Correct.
He did it with Billy Donovan. He did it with Patrick Williams, right? Patrick Williams was not supposed to be, was not mocked in the 4th spot. He wasn't even in the top 10 in most mock drafts. Mm-hmm. They went out and they picked him up at 4. They went out on a limb, and they did this with Vucevic. The trade was there, even though it didn't make a lot of sense necessarily. The timing wasn't perfect, but they went out and got him. And that's something that, I don't know, is a little bit shocking as a Bulls fan coming from the last, decade or so of moves. I mean, when was the last time John Paxson and Gar Forman made a in-season move to improve the team? It's it's pretty interesting to see the difference. And I wanted to see, just before we move on to the current state of the team, I wanted to see if in that process of AK going through the entire management and organization, because I know as a fan, it was kind of a little bit nerve-wracking, the idea that Jim Boylan might not get fired, right? That he might stay there. And there were lots of reports that management, and specifically the Reinsdorfs and John Paxson, were encouraging AK to keep him, or at least do a full evaluation before. What was it that Michael and Jerry or John, what is it that they saw with Jim Boylan that made them think that he could be a successful coach that next season? Or was it just purely for financial reasons?
I don't think it was either. I think they said, hey, you know what? He's a good dude. Give him a look, but it's your call. He would not have taken the job if he did not have full autonomy, 1,000%. And I asked him that question. I called him and I asked him a number of different questions. After the draft, I said, what was it about Patrick Williams? Because, I'm not in my scouting life anymore. I'm worried about the Cubs, the Sox, the Bears, the Bulls, the Blackhawks, and everything else. And I said, what was it about Patrick Williams? Because like you said, none of the mocks had him going 4th. Mm-hmm. And his comment was, we worked him out. They really liked Tyrese Halliburton. They loved him. That was I'm not going to say he was my favorite player in the draft. He was my favorite player on the board for the Bulls because they need a point guard. Yeah. And I looked at him and went, okay, that's not an all-pro, but that is a guy that's a 10-year, really solid point guard in the league. Just a really good player. Yeah. And he said, we liked Halliburton a lot. He said his workout was phenomenal, and he was off the charts in his meetings when they talk philosophy and they X and O and they go through all this. He tested in every possible way off the charts. He said, then we brought Patrick Williams in, and we went, oh, God, he's 19 years old. Where will he be at 25?
Yeah.
Now, that sounds like a long way away. At 25, he's probably still going to have 12 more years to play in the league. And that's 6 years of development. Where's he going to be at 22, 23? Yeah. And so he said, when you get lucky, and he said, the lottery ball smile, this was his quote, lottery ball smiles on you, you're swinging for a grand slam home run.
Yeah.
He said, when you're in the top 4, yes, you could take that guy and go, we got a solid player. He goes, when you got a guy who maybe he'll flame out and be a spectacular failure, he goes, but I'm betting that guy's going to be a hell of a player. And in terms of Jim Boylan, Jim's a very nice guy. Jim was not qualified to be the head coach of the Chicago Bulls.
Wow. So to go off of that,
that's they can call it a silence after that comment.
I felt it though, because obviously we feel the same way, I mean, like I was telling Chris once, is usually if we're not podcasting, if I'm not taking care of my kids, if I'm not hanging out with my wife, I'm on YouTube, I'm watching like Euro basketball, different coaches showing different drills and how they go about their practices. And I came across a video of Jim Boylan teaching how the San Antonio Spurs teach their defensive system. Mm-hmm. And I'll just say that it was just kind of awkward and weird because I just don't think NBA players would be okay with rope being tied to them. I don't know. Maybe you have some sources or maybe you've been in practices where coaches say, you know what, let's tie a rope around your waist and we'll string you up here to the top of the key, and then we'll have another guy rope down there at the corner. I just don't know, but I mean, honestly, I know he coached with he was under Pop and everything, but it's almost like you would just watch him, and it was almost like you were watching how a high school coach or even a college, maybe lower level coach would coach their team in terms of how he handled discipline. Where you're down 20 and there's under a minute left and you're calling a timeout. Like what are we doing here? And the punch clock thing. I mean, I don't know, Cap. I don't know. I mean, what was it? What did they see in him?
He was very good at working upper management. He was. Mm-hmm. He's a very nice guy. I have never. Mm-hmm. I coached 4 years in college. I scouted 4 years in the NBA. I was around some really, really, really impressive people like Donnie Walsh, who ran the Knicks and the Pacers. One of the most impressive executives I've ever been around. Mm-hmm. I mean, that guy could walk in a gym and in like 3 seconds go, he can't play, and he can. Mm-hmm. And we're like, well, those two are all Americans, and no one's heard of that guy. And he would be right, 8 times out of 10, which is a pretty damn good track record. I've never been in a drill where you've used rope. If Greg Popovich uses it, it's good enough for me.
Right.
I don't know if that's what Pop does, if that's something that, Jim made up. There are people who think Jim is a very intelligent teacher of defense. Mm-hmm. The problem I had with Jim Boylan as the head coach is the Bulls became an embarrassment. They became a punchline. They became a clown show. And when I have multiple guys who are head coaches in that league, not one guy who might have an accident, I'm talking multiple, that would tell me, Jim would say to them when they, how the coaches get together pre-COVID and they're standing there BSing while the two teams are warming up, and they'd shake hands and, hey, man, how you doing? How's that? Yeah, I had multiple guys tell me that he said to them, hey, say something nice about me to the media because they're on me hard in Chicago. Who does that?
People were afraid of losing their job.
Right. He was desperate. I get it. He was, having some marital issues. And I respect the fact that the Reinsdorfs, they knew their team was bad. They took care of him. They didn't overpay him. He was still one of the lowest paid coaches in the league.
Yeah.
But for a guy, he's got a child who's got a health condition, and they took care of him financially so that he could do the right things for his family. God bless them. I've never met one person who works for Jerry Reinsdorf in baseball or basketball that doesn't tell you he's one of the greatest people they've ever worked for.
Yeah.
That's how well respected that the Reinsdorfs are. And I know fans, at times get mad at him. Why did you hire Tony La Russa? Why did you bring in Jim? I get all of it. Jerry's an amazing, amazing person, but he's very loyal. But the hiring of Jim Boylan was just a flat out mistake.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned something really important here, which is that the Bulls were an embarrassment. Now, the record for the Bulls this year versus last year is not that different. But as a fan, and I'm sure in the media, you feel it, the discourse around the Chicago Bulls is much different than last year. It's no longer a national punchline. Now, we're still bad as far as our record is concerned, but there feels like there's an upward trajectory. There's a level of professionalism surrounding the Bulls that wasn't there before. And so I think that's why there's been a lot of optimism this last year, even though the product on the floor hasn't come around yet, hasn't developed the way we wanted it to. And something I know that Laro and you were arguing about on Twitter together was about some of the younger prospects that under the Garpex era, which were Lauri Markkanen, Kobe White, Wendell Carter. Wendell Carter obviously moved in the trade, who have been very kind of average-ish players. And they're productive, they're cheap, they're worth keeping around for the most part. But as you mentioned, if you're in the top 10, and especially if you're in the top 10 multiple years, you got to take swings. And Patrick Williams feels like the swing that they took. And I'm still pretty high on him. I think he's got a lot of really great tools to be able to make it into the stratosphere that they want him to be. But it's really difficult to come in having those three players that are kind of middling picks and middling production. And as you mentioned with Tolero, you have to pay a lot of those guys when they're still young. They've only been out of college for, they go to college for 1 year. And then by the time they're 21, 22, you have to pay them big money on their next deal without really knowing if they're going to be worth it. And at 25, 26, they may look like Zach LaVine and be an all-star, or they may flame out. You just don't know. So that second deal hurts,
Well, I had dinner with Tibbs. As I said, we're good friends. And my relationship with Tom, like I was just one of those guys with a microphone. I didn't know Tom at all. Now, my best friend in the world outside of family is Kevin O'Neill. And Kevin and Tibbs were on Jeff Van Gundy's staff in New York. And Kevin said, Tibbs is intense, but he's a great basketball coach. You should get to know him. Well, I haven't had an opportunity to know him. And then it's August of like Tom's second year. And my phone rings. I don't know the number. It's an 847 number. Hello. I figured it's, somebody local, a friend or something. And he said, yeah, is David Kaplan there? I said, this is him. He goes, this is Tom Thibodeau. And I'm like, because I've gotten the calls from John Fox. I've gotten them from Joe Madden. I've gotten them from Jerry Reinsdorf, Kenny Wood. Like, if they're mad, they call. And we have it out, and then we move on. It's effing August. I didn't rip him. Why is he calling me? I said, yeah, coach, how can I help you? What'd I say on the air? He goes, oh, nothing. He said, I was wondering if we could have dinner.
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. This was on, I think, a Thursday. He goes, how's Sunday night work for you? I said, great. Where do you live? I tell him, he's like, I'm 5 minutes from you because the Bulls were still up at Berto. They weren't in the city then. He said, how about we meet at this steakhouse, Fleming Steakhouse in Lincolnshire? I'm like, done. I'll meet you there. They ended up keeping the restaurant open. We were there for almost 5 hours.
Wow.
And it's just the two of us. And I said to him, can I ask, why me? It's not like I'm a Bulls beat writer. I'm a talk show host. I do the Cubs at this point. Why me? He said, funny story. He said, I get named the head coach of the Chicago Bulls and my phone rings. And it's this guy who says, I need you to fly to Santa Barbara next week and spend 3 days with me. I'm going to teach you how to be a head coach. And he said, yeah, I appreciate it. I'm busy. I got to move into my place and I got to get to work here. And he hangs up. He said 5 minutes later, his phone rings. It's Doc Rivers, he worked for Doc. And Doc said, hey, man, you made a big mistake. What do you mean? So-and-so just called you, opened his freaking life to you and his heart, and you blew him off. He said, dude, I don't have time to spend 3 days at Santa Barbara. He said, hang up the phone, call the airlines and get a plane ticket. You don't say no to him. Listen to me. He'll help you. So he said, okay. He flies out there. 3 days, him and Rick Majerus.
Oh, man.
And
great coach.
Great. And Rick was at my wedding. Rick flew from Maui to come to my wedding. I mean,
wow.
That's my guy.
Yeah.
And he sits for 3 days. Tibbs tells me, dude, we went to the same greasy diner. It was 24 hours a day in Santa Barbara. He goes, me and Rick, day one, we're just talking about offense. He goes, and we're in there for 12 hours doing offense. Let's try this play. What do you think of this? Rick was the greatest big man coach ever. And he said, then we went home, take a nap, shower, meet for dinner, and keep going. He said the next day, it's all about defense. He goes, the third day, special situations and how you deal with the media. And Tibbs like, I hate the effing media. And Rick said, I need you to do me a favor. I'm going to give you a phone number. That's one of my best friends. You can trust him. He will never, ever F you. That's what Rick told him. He said, you need to call him and you need to sit down and talk to him and figure out who you can and can't trust in the media, who has it in for you and who you can trust. And it took him a year because then he got into the season. So now it's the second year and he says, let's go to dinner. And we become like this. And he told me a lot of stuff as all this stuff was going haywire with, Jeff Van Gundy saying stuff on the broadcast.
Oh, man.
I never used one bit of it on the air because my friend was telling me it was not for me to reveal my friend's problems.
Yeah.
And so we've stayed tight to this very, very moment. But I'm just telling you, when he was here, things were different. And I know people think he played guys too many minutes and all of this. Why is Derrick Rose back in New York? Because he loves him. Why is Taj Gibson in New York? Because he loves him. Joakim Noah loves him. LeBron James worked with him with Team USA, loves him. The Bulls have to get back to that level where they're not a punchline, where they have more talent and they develop people. That's what they're missing.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things you hear from guys like that have played for Tibbs is he doesn't sugarcoat anything. He's a straight shooter. He'll tell you what it takes to be successful. You can either take it or you can leave it. And Julius Randle, you tweeted it today.
Yeah.
To I think it was to Red Fred.
To read it to you.
Yeah. Like if
Fred's
you want to read it,
over
go
his
ahead.
grave.
Yeah.
Fred's always argue with you.
C-Red, here's what this is from Julius Randle. I will say this about Tibbs. He's a tough coach. If you don't like to be coached or if you don't like to play or do things the right way, then he's tough. Tibbs is a guy that just expects a certain level of professionalism. He expects you to do things the right way, be prepared, and do things the right way on a day-to-day basis. And if you don't want to do that, then it is going to be tough. But honestly, man, he's not as much of a hard ass as people think he is. The dude is super cool. Like, you can talk to him. He's going to kill me if he sees this, but he really is tough. You can talk to him. Tibbs is dope. Honestly, he's a player's coach.
Yeah.
And that's why when I hear, and I love C-Red Fred, I love his passion, but he doesn't understand who Tom Thibodeau is.
Yeah. I mean,
that portion of maintaining relationships with your players, I've seen the difference. You listen to a Billy Donovan press conference after a game where he breaks down what happened, why he did. He always explains the reasons why he does things, and he won't throw anybody under the bus on the team, but he'll call it out and say, he did a great job at this. We need him to improve on this, this, and that. And you know he's saying the exact same thing to him in practice and to his face.
Correct.
And you saw the previous two coaches, right? Fred Hoiberg said, he had that famous thing right in the beginning where he says, oh yeah, Joakim came to me and said he'd come off the bench for the team. And Joakim Noah said, I never said that. The next day he was like, no way. And they're like, all right, well, this is supposed to be our player's coach. And he doesn't, he can't handle that relationship. And then obviously with Jim Boylan, everything was about heart and spirit and soul. And like, there was no actual basketball knowledge being discussed in these types of press conferences. So you said you've known Billy Donovan for 30 years. He's an awesome coach. Do you believe that he is the right guy? Because a lot of the worry for Bulls fans and the media when he first got hired was how good of a coach is he because of his record in the playoffs with Oklahoma. And they said, well, it doesn't really matter because the Bulls are at point A right now. Billy Donovan can get them to point B. Now, point C, point D, which is maybe a championship, is down the road. Maybe he's the coach for that. Maybe he's not. But that's not something we have to worry about necessarily right now. But the trade that we made at the trade deadline, I feel like pushed the timeline forward a bit, right? Because we got Zach coming up for free agency next year. Vooch in 2 years. He's obviously not getting any younger. Pat Williams got to develop. So Billy Donovan has to be that coach now to get them into the playoffs and further. And you mentioned when you were talking earlier about what AK said to him in the interview, which is basically they give him every chance to be an NBA champion head coach with the Chicago Bulls. So do you, Cap, believe that he's the guy that can take them there?
Yeah, I think he can absolutely win a title, but you got to get him a hell of a lot more talent.
Yeah.
You can literally dig up John Wooden and stick him on the bench, and it's not going to matter.
Yeah.
You don't have name me who the third scorer is on this team. You don't have one.
Yeah. Might be Thad.
You don't have one.
I would love if Pat was the guy. I would love if he just something clicked.
He needs to be the guy.
Yeah.
But don't forget, Pat Williams, 2 years ago from this very moment that I'm talking to Chris and Larry, Pat Williams was in high school.
Yeah.
Right.
And you're asking him to play against men.
Mm-hmm.
Those are men out there. He guarded LeBron James, and LeBron said, that kid's going to be a really good player. LeBron James is one of the 3 greatest players to ever play the sport, and he's 36 years of age.
He doesn't say that about many young players either.
No.
Same thing with Kawhi. Like if you can pull Kawhi doesn't talk. So if you can get, I don't know.
No, I believe in Pat, but you're right, Cap, that we can't expect so much from him so early. You've got to give him time to develop, which is one of the, I think the worries that Bulls fans have about this trade is, okay, by the time Vooch comes up for his next contract or Zach gets a max deal, are we going to have the type of talent around Pat to have him, once he's developed, once he's 23, 24, 25 and entering his prime, are we going to be the type of team, how can we improve the team? We shipped out the 2 first-round picks, we shipped out Wendell Carter. Where's the talent coming from? The cap space this summer is going to be a little dicey, especially with Lauri Markkanen. So, where can we improve that talent base?
Well, what if I told you signed either Lonzo Ball or Mike Conley in the offseason?
That would be helpful. That would be a big help.
That's a really good step going forward. What if they don't make the playoffs and you look and go, wow, they just got the 3rd pick in the draft. They got lucky. You got to have some luck. But when a player of Vucevic's caliber becomes available, a multiple-time All-Star, I'm not a big Wendell Carter guy. I'm not. I think he's an okay player. He's all right. But what does he do that's special? I said this the day he was drafted. What does he do that you look and go, wow, that guy's special? Yeah. Like when they drafted Lauri Markkanen, he's 7'1", and he could shoot 40% from 3 if he's right. All right, let's see what happens. I blame a lot of his problems on awful player development. Awful. Now, you said something earlier, Chris, that I completely agree with. When you draft players who are 19, 20 years old who played 1 year in college, they might need 4 years of development, which would mean that should truly be their rookie year. 3 more years in college and a year as a rookie. But now your clock moves up and you go, oh, son of a bitch. Do I pay Lauri Markkanen that much money?
Yep.
You may wake up, he's 23. You may wake up 3, 4, 5 years from now and go, freaking Lauri Markkanen's an all-star there. Why'd we let him go? Well, that's why those guys get paid the big bucks, because Lauri Markkanen's 23 years of age. They're not going to probably pay him. They do a sign and trade. He leaves. He's still only 23, 24 years of age.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to be the beneficiary of his abilities and 4 more years of development. That's the problem with drafting 1 year guys.
Yeah. Well, and also you've got when you've got a development staff like the Bulls did and the coaching staff that the Bulls did, how do you expect guys like Wendell and Lauri and Kobe to actually develop?
Correct.
We've wanted Lauri Markkanen to post up smaller guys for 4 years running now.
Yeah.
The first time I've seen it on a consistent basis is like the last 3 weeks. Well, he's been off the bench. I don't know, like that kind of stuff bugs me. Or like Wendell Carter, you said, now he's pretty good at everything. He's not elite at anything. He's pretty good. But you have to develop those things. If you wanted to end up like Al Horford, which is his comp, you have to give him time to develop. But now you've got guys like Larry Markkinen, who's 23. Wendell just turned 22 yesterday. That they're going to, Wendell's coming up for a contract extension. You got to pay him based on his current production and where you think he may end up.
You can
usually that second contract
when you hit the reset button.
Right. Now that's easier for them, right?
Right.
They can pay him easier.
What if you said in Chicago, I'm going to pay Wendell, I'm going to pay Lowry, and neither guy gets to the level that you're expecting?
Yeah, well, you end up like Portland a couple years ago, where they paid a bunch of role players $15-16 million a year, and they had to start shipping out assets with these contracts to try and get back to competitiveness. Yeah. No, so I think we're in a good spot as far as we picked a direction. We've got an executive that knows what he wants and is willing to go out and get it and take it.
I think you're going to see a lot of change this summer.
Yeah.
I do. I think they're going to make their decision, probably do a sign and trade and move Lowry out. Would I be shocked if they renounced their rights to either Thaddeus Young or to Satoransky or to Kobe White if they moved him in a deal? No, that wouldn't shock me. They are going out to try and add another star, and it's got to be a star at the point guard spot. Now, is Lonzo Ball the guy for $23 million? My red flag on him is he's not a great shooter, A. B, why is he on his third team in 5 years?
Yeah. Well, with him, he's kind of an interesting point guard because he doesn't really get to the rim at all. He doesn't shoot free throws, doesn't draw free throws. He's a great ball mover. He's gotten a lot better as a perimeter shooter, and he's great perimeter. Yes, that's the thing I think that our team has lacked the most this year is perimeter defense. Our best perimeter defender is Garrett Temple, who's 35 and on a 1-year contract. Correct. That's their biggest problem. If they can, and now you got Vooch in there, who's not an amazing defender. He can be fine, but he needs pieces around him. We need Pat to be a really great 4. We need a really strong wing, and we need a point guard who can defend. If you get 3 good defensive players around Zach, around Vooch, I think you're cooking with gas. But that's a lot of people to bring in, and there's not a whole lot of money to go around. I think you're right that the point guard spot needs to be the primary focus and has needed to be
number one
primary focus for.
I used to argue with Pax about that. I argue with John about that multiple times. I'm like, dude, get a freaking point guard. I mean, we need a point guard. Well, we feel like this guy could. I'm like, stop.
Well, Campaign's doing okay now. He's in Phoenix having a great time as a backup because they developed him.
Yeah.
I think doing that.
Going back to Lowry, Larry, I still believe Lowry was set back by the incompetent player development process and by an incompetent head coach.
Yeah.
No doubt.
And to go with what you guys have been talking about in terms of the point guard, like if you watch a lot of like Billy Donovan stuff, even if you go back to Oklahoma City, a lot of their offense, you need really good point guard play. And there are some teams where their offense, you could just kind of run your 2 guard and you'll be okay. You just need a guy that can space the floor a little bit at the point guard position. But a lot of his stuff is kind of like it's structured at the beginning and then boom, it's freedom. All right, let's run. It's more like structure, getting guys in the right spots, and now we can go from there. But we don't have guys like if you watch Kobe, I mean, a lot of his plays made are like when it just doesn't look natural to him, basically. And for me, the point guard is the number one. And then to go with what Chris said, when Pat came out, because I watched a lot of tape on him, when he came out, a lot of people were like, you know what? I think he's a 4. I don't think he can guard multiple positions because of his quads were too big, his lateral, all that. But my biggest thing with Pat is, and I think that, and I know Billy's your guy, but I feel like that offensive line, I'm thinking football, but the starting 5, to me, it should be Vooch. It should be Pat at the 4. And the reason why I say Pat at the 4 is because that's where he's most comfortable at. I mean, games that he's played at the 4, you see he's just really comfortable. That's where he wants to be. And I think for player development, I think that would help him. And then the 3, you could go Garrett, you could go TBJ that you have him now. There's a couple guys you can go there. And then obviously Zach and then Sato. And I think that Thad would be obviously, I think we're starting to see that these minutes are starting to pile up for him. And I'm not saying it's taking a toll on him in a way, but I feel like you're starting to see it. It's not the same, triple double almost every night type deal. And I feel like him coming off the bench, being with either Tice or Lowry. I know Billy's been playing Lowry at the 3, just having another playmaker, another guy that could get guys in the right spots. Because I think Thad is a good dude. They're going to have him at the pinch post, high post, and just have him facilitating. I feel like him with that second group would kind of enhance it. But how do you feel? I know this is not, obviously it's not going to be a finished product, but how do you feel about what Billy has done with rotations and just really about rotations? How do you feel how he's done this year?
I feel like he's playing with one hand tied behind his back.
Mm-hmm.
Feel like he walked in here and said, all right, my number one job is not to win games. He'll tell you that publicly. I think his number one job was, okay, let's figure out what the hell we have here.
Mm-hmm.
Can that guy play or not? At the end of the year, you weren't winning a title. You weren't making a run, much as, C Red Fred's on Twitter going, I get to the playoffs and 7 champions. At the end of a bad year, this is what Donnie Walsh told me one day, and I'm like, that makes a lot of sense. He said, if you're not going to win the title at the end of the season, you better know what the hell is on your roster. You better know, can Larry play or not? Can Chris play or not? Because at the end of the year, if you went, I wrung out 3 extra wins, but we finished in the 8 seed or the 10 seed or whatever.
Yeah.
And I didn't play that guy over there because he wasn't really ready to play. Can he play or not? Does that guy have a future with us? If he doesn't, ship his ass out of here before the rest of the league knows. And if he can't play, then put him on the damn floor and let him develop. And I think that's what Billy's trying to do. So if you see them move on from Wendell Carter, they determined he wasn't a long-term fit for this roster, and they were going to have to pay him shortly. Now, if you see Lowry gone, they've made that determination. At the end of the season, Billy is going to sit down with Arturis and go, okay, here's the deal. He can't play. That guy doesn't work well with others. That guy's a keeper. That's where they're absolutely going to have to be spot on in their evaluations, especially when you don't have $80 million in cap space. What do they got now? 25?
Yeah.
Well, if you got 25 million in cap space, you better spend it wisely.
Yeah.
Yep.
So with Devon Dotson, right? A lot of people, a lot of fans, I know his mother came out and said some things. If so, in your estimation, if a guy is not getting any time, Billy has kind of already said he may not be it, or is it just kind of he's too deep in the position?
So Devon Dotson's mother said what?
She did you see it, Chris? Did you see it?
Yeah, she was just wondering why he's not getting playing time at this point. We haven't found an answer point guard. Why aren't we at least throwing Devon Dotson out there for 10, 15 minutes a game? Just
because Mrs. Dotson isn't at practice every day.
Right.
And Billy sees everything that goes on at practice. It's amazing. If that was my mom passed away in December, God bless her. But if that was my mother and she was making comments to the program director, why aren't you putting Cap in that show? Mom, I'm a professional basketball player. Let the coach make the determination. If you told me he was sitting Zach LaVine, okay, then that's a coach who either has or doesn't know what he's doing. But Devon Dotson was not even drafted. He was a free agent signing out of a really good program. He's really well coached in college. Relax, Mrs. Dotson. Yeah, I guarantee you, if Billy heard about it or his teammates, he got a lot of grief about it.
Yeah, I just real quick, Chris, real quick. Bill Self, I was right after the draft, right? I'm a nut. I watch everything you can think of. I'll go on YouTube, see if I can find interviews with different coaches, whatever. Right after the draft, I don't know who it was that called him and played the video, but somebody called him and then said, hey, how you doing, Coach? Why don't you think Devon, Dotson was drafted? He was an All-American. Why wasn't he drafted? And I kind of felt some type of way because he was like, well, Devon called me and said, hey, they're not going to take me at this spot. What do you think I should do? and he told him that you should just say no to anybody else, or basically in so many words, he was like, it's better if you just go undrafted rather than going somewhere than and just whatever. So like I thought to myself, like it just didn't seem like a guy that was worth, you know, drafting, obviously, but also like a guy that I'm not going to waste my time on, you know, hey, why is he not playing? Hey, you know, what's going on? Because Devon Dotson is a great player, and I don't want to take this to Devon Dotson because he's not a big part of the team. But it's just the fact that I know a lot of people that watch our podcast are like, hey, can you guys let us know, like, why is Devon Dotson not playing? You know, and I'm just like, hey, look, you know, we got Cap coming on. He's got a lot of connections. So we'll see just for you guys, like, hey, why is Devon Dotson not playing? You know,
okay. So let me ask you guys this question.
Yep.
Billy's whether he wins the title or not, he's a competent NBA coach.
Yep.
Don't you think that if he thought that kid at this point in his life, a year from now may be different? I mean, Jimmy Butler sat the bench as a rookie, and everyone went, well, how come Jimmy Butler can't play?
Yeah.
Well, he'll tell you today that was some of the best development of his life.
Yeah.
Sitting there and going, okay, I got to get in the gym and I got to be better. If Billy thought Devon Dotson could help his team win basketball games right now, Devon Dotson would be playing. He's an undrafted player. He's in his rookie year. Let's just let this play out. Let's just let player development take over.
To go off of that, I just need to know, because I've heard from Nick Friedel, I've heard from other reporters around the team, and just from hearing you, obviously you have deep inside knowledge. The 3 alphas thing, like, is there anything you can add to what's out there that people may not know what happened with the Jimmy and you know, obviously Rondo and D Wade? Like, is there anything that you like that's not out there that you like, you know, was crazy about that situation?
So you had, first of all, you had a franchise that had a directionless coach. You know, I got a phone call. This is a funny story. So I ripped the Bulls on my radio show one day. I get off the air, phone's ringing, and I see the number 455-4000. That's the Bulls. And I'm like, because the Blackhawks are 455-7000. Same building, different floor. Mm-hmm. Oh, boy, here we go. Hello, Cap Gar Foreman.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. And I said, hey, Gar, what's up? And I've known Gar from when I was coaching, and that was in the 80s. So I've known Gar a long time. I said, yeah, what's up, Gar? I just heard that bullshit you were saying on your radio show. He said, maybe you think we should blow it up and start over, but I'm not going to go through all that. We got the youngest roster in the NBA. That was a quote to me. And I said, Gar, Felicio can't play. And I started naming off all these different guys. I go, you may have the youngest roster. None of those guys have a future in the league. And that's just a fact. And so we went at it. You'll see, big boy. You ask Friedel the next time you talk to him. That's Gar's go-to line. Big boy. Okay. And that's the last time I ever spoke to Gar Foreman. He's not one of my favorites. I felt like you could say what you want about John. John worked his ass off. John would pick up the phone, call you, and you would go at it. I mean, go at it. And the next day it was all blown over. And all John wanted was to be treated fairly. And if I called him and said, will you come on? He would answer the toughest questions. And then he's the guy that went to the Reinsdorfs and said, yeah, we need new direction. I had my shot. It didn't work. Gar Foreman, I just felt like he was the phoniest guy I've ever dealt with.
Well, you're not alone in that. And I didn't know him personally at all, but I just felt as the GM, I don't know, there were even rumors about him having spies in the organization or on the bench with the team to like see what was being said about him, or I don't know. Is there any truth to that kind of stuff?
Yes. Yeah. I have people that worked in the organization who went, dude, don't call me on my cell phone because Gar knows what numbers come in. Call me on my wife's phone. That's true.
It's amazing. Yeah. I mean, ultimately, I think the best thing that's happened this year is the Bulls are no longer being run like a mom and pop shop. like a small market franchise. There's no reason that Chicago Bulls, 6-time champion Chicago Bulls, worldwide known organization in one of the greatest cities in the United States, should be treated on a national scale like it has been the last decade or so.
Yeah. Correct.
And
You're
so,
exactly right. And it's finally now being run. You know, there's a great quote from the Cubs. They were owned by a corporation and run like a mom and pop grocery store that was under Tribune. Now they're a family-owned team run like a major corporation.
Yep.
Now we can debate, what's going on there. That's a different show for a different time. But I will tell you, the Bulls now, they have a player development staff. They've got a competent head coach. They got 2 bright young executives who this is their shot.
Yeah.
In the best city in the world to go out and build themselves a champion, and they're going to be given every resource to do that. Jerry's only thing, hey, I know he has told them that. I'll spend the luxury tax if you feel like we can make a run. I'm not going to take, a 34-win team and go way into the luxury tax when we have 0 chance of winning.
Yeah.
I don't blame him for that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do it either.
What?
Yeah. Well, that's I think what we can take heart from, because I know a lot of Bulls fans right now are pretty depressed about the current state of the team. But the foundation, I know, but the foundation is finally there. That's the difference, right?
Like,
With Jimmy Butler,
what are they depressed about? They got the front office change they wanted. They got the coach change that they wanted. They got the owner to write a bunch of huge checks. They got a really competent executive team. Mark Eversley is really connected. I mean, we're talking about a guy that worked for Nike that every big name player in the league loves that dude. Now, that doesn't mean they're all going to sign here. In the end, you better have the money to pay somebody because they're not going because they're friends or they like you. But if I'm a Bulls fan, and I am, this is the most optimistic I've been since when they won the lottery with Derek and then Tibbs came in.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that's the thing. I think, as you and I both know, Chicago fans are not very patient folks. I think that's really why is the wins, the results haven't come yet. It's going to take time, but we're finally on a path with the right foundation and development staff and infrastructure in place. And that's for the first time. I know a lot of people are mad about the Jimmy Butler trade, and I am too. But when Jimmy Butler was here, we didn't have any of that stuff in place for him to succeed. And so now we finally do, and I think that's where we can kind of take heart in these losses.
Who won that trade?
Well, Jimmy Butler did. That's ultimately
Minnesota
Jimmy
did.
Butler.
They got to the playoffs. Then they fired the coach because he was too tough for them. Jimmy leaves, goes to Philly, goes from Philly down to Miami. Chicago's still sitting there with Zach LaVine, who's a 25-year-old star. He's not a superstar yet, but he's a star, man. That guy's a star. And he's a great person.
I think that's where the point guard comes in, because I think that if he can play more off ball, I think he could take another step.
I agree.
Yeah. Yep. Well, thank you so much, Cap, for coming on. We really appreciate your time. You gave us a whole hour. We really thank you for your time on a Saturday evening.
You got my number. Larry knows how to get me. Just whenever you want me. I love talking ball. I'll do it anytime you want.
Look, before we go, Chris, we gotta ask him one question, right? So, what is the craziest story? Obviously, PC.
He smiles already.
Either your scouting, either your coaching, either just around the NBA. Like, what's the craziest story that you think about today? Like, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened.
Okay, so do you guys know the Scottie Pippen, Sean Kemp story?
I think I may have heard it on the radio. I think if I know, I think.
Chris, do you know it?
No, refresh my memory.
Okay, so I get out of scouting. I am now in the radio world, and I'm also a consultant for a trading card company called Star Picks, P-I-C-S. And if you Google them, they were the original rookie draft pick sets. And this company calls me and says, hey, would you be interested in writing the backs of the trading cards? So, Larry Golden, 6'5", Ole Miss, and here's all his accomplishments. And the tough part of the job was that we only did, I think, 53 cards in the set. And so I had to basically be perfect. I had to, like, if I pick Larry Golden and put him in the set, he doesn't get drafted, I look like an idiot. Like, why'd you put him in the set? He didn't get drafted. We didn't have like 200 players. I think I had, maybe it was 56. I think I had room to make 3 mistakes. That was it. So I started to deal with all of these agents, and we paid every player except the number 1 pick got the same exact contract. They all got $5,000. Well, I would go see, for example, I go see North Carolina State play at Marquette. I would drive up there, watch the game, and then after the game, wait outside the locker room. Here comes Tom Gugliotta. He's going to be a lottery pick. I'll give you $5,000 as soon as you play your last game. I'll have a check overnighted to you. We want exclusive rights to use your picture in an NC State uniform. Done. I'm in. What guy wouldn't take it? Free $5,000. So all these guys, I start dealing with their agents. I get to know everybody. Dr. Charles Tucker was a professor at Michigan State. He at one time had Isaiah Thomas, Mark Aguirre, Magic Johnson as his clients.
Wow.
In the 94 draft, the number 1, 2, and 3 picks were Jalen Rose. Remember that god-awful red and white suit that he wore?
Yes.
Big Dog Robinson and Juwan Howard, who went to my basketball camp. I had done Dr. Tucker a few favors. I signed a guy for one of my 3 bonus slots who didn't get drafted, but it helped him out, and I knew he'd be good to me, and we'd been friends. Dr. Tucker calls, hey, can you get a camera and come down to the draft tomorrow? The draft was at the Crown Plaza Hotel in Indianapolis. And I said, what am I coming down for? He said, I represent Juwan, Jalen, and Big Dog, and I'll bring you up to my suite that morning, and you can interview all 3 of them for an exclusive for, at the time, it was Sports Channel Chicago. Now it's NBC Sports Chicago. I said, done, I'm in. I grabbed my camera guy, a guy named Jeff Corbett. Corby still works with me today at NBC Sports Chicago. So we've been friends for over 30 years.
Wow.
We get in the van. Now there's no internet, so you can't feed back the film or of the interview. We got to drive it back. So we get down there, 10 a.m., 11 a.m., we shoot the interview. We get into the elevator. We're going right to the van. We're driving 3 hours back to Chicago, and then we can run this on the news that night around the draft. I'm on the elevator, and you know how somebody can be staring at you and you can feel it?
Yep.
I look back, and I finally go, hey, dude, can I help you? He's like, are you Cap? I said, I am. He said, I thought so. My name is whatever his name was. I'm going to be seeing a lot more of you. I said, who the hell are you? He said, I work for James Bryant and Tony Dutt. And immediately I went, oh, the 2 agents out of Oklahoma City. He said, yep. He said, our number 1 client just got traded to Chicago 5 minutes ago. I said, huh? Who's your number 1 client? He said, Sean Kemp. I said, the Bulls just traded for Sean Kemp? He said, yeah, I'm actually driving to Chicago right now. I got to meet his plane at O'Hare. He's got to pass a physical before the draft tonight because Chicago gave up Scottie Pippen, and they're getting back Sean Kemp, Ricky Pierce, and I think it was the number 11 pick in the first round. Wow. And I went, hold on a second. The Bulls traded Scottie Pippen? He said, yes, they did. And I can't go on the air and break the story out of some maniac in an elevator. So I pick the phone and I call, and there's no iPhones back then, that big brick phone. And I call Tony Dutt or James Bryant, one of the 2 of them. I'm like, hey, man, it's Cap. Hey, what's going on? Hey, do you guys represent Sean Kemp? Yes, we do. Did he just get traded to the Bulls? How the hell did you find that out? And I don't throw the guy under the bus who just told me. I said, I'm at the draft. I just heard that. Yes, it's true. It's done, but he's got to pass a physical. I'm like, all right, great, thanks. I go on the air. I call in on, it was back then, WMVP. It wasn't ESPN 1000 yet. That's where I was working before I went to WGN. Put me on the air right now. They put me on. I break the story, and all hell breaks loose. And there's no Twitter. There's no Facebook. There's no social media. There's no internet.
Yeah.
All hell breaks loose. And now I get a phone call from a friend of mine who, up till this past year, was the voice of the Trailblazers. He used to be the voice of Loyola. Well, at the time, he was the pregame, postgame host for the Seattle Sonics, who I used to scout for. He calls me, hey, man, did you just report we traded the Rain Man? I said, I did. He said, can you come on our radio show right now on KJR Radio in Seattle? KJR's owner is a guy named Barry Ackerley, who happens to own the Seattle Supersonics. I go on. I said, this is a done deal. I've confirmed it. It's done. They get over 200 people call the Sonics to cancel their season tickets. They are furious because the Rain Man was the guy in Seattle. And, you know, the national people, Scottie Pippen was the guy with the migraine and the whole deal, and he sat out when Kukoc got to take the last shot when Michael was retired the first time. So the owner walks into the conference room. There's George Karl. There's a guy named Mark Warkentine, who was his assistant, and the rest of the staff. And he's like, hey, guys, trade's off. I'm not signing off on it. Are you nuts? We're making a great trade. Sorry, we had 200 people threaten to cancel their tickets. I'm not signing off on it. Deal's dead. They call Krause back. No trade. I'll give you $1 million in cash on top of it. Nope. Owner said no. $2 million. No. $3 million. Hey, man, you could offer $20 million. The owner won't sign off on the deal. The deal is dead. And it ends. Now I get buried. The score is ripping me. Dan McNeil's on there. What an idiot. Where would he come up with this stupid idea?
Oh, man.
Yeah. So now, fast forward, I coached an AAU team. The Portland Trailblazers, 2 years later, have 3 number 1 picks. And these guys, the players all fill out these forms for the NBA, and they list references. The 3 guys are all from my AAU team. Donnie Boyce, Sherelle Ford, Michael Finley. Those guys end up putting me down as a reference. So this guy, Mark Warkentine, who used to be with the Sonics, he calls me. Can we interview you on camera in Chicago at the pre-draft camp? Yes, you can. We sit down at the Fairmont Hotel in downtown freaking Chicago. And he said, yeah, these guys all listed you. So we just on camera talk about their character. What do you think of them as a player? But we got to know about them as people. Great kids. I loved coaching them, all of that. I said, hey, Mark, I knew you when you were Tarkanian's assistant at Vegas. I lost touch with you. Where did you go? He said, oh, hey, man, I left. I went to work for the Sonics. And then our president, Bob Whitsitt, got hired by the Blazers, and he took me with him. Hang on a second. You were with the Sonics? When? He gives me the years. I said, did you guys trade Sean Kemp for Scottie Pippen? That's a sore subject I don't want to get into.
Wow.
You have to get into it. He said, okay, I'll tell you the truth. Jerry Krause told some asshole in the Chicago media, and that whole thing blew up. Our owner freaked out. Said, that's not how it went down. How the F would you know? I said, because I'm the asshole in the Chicago media. It's like, oh, my God. He goes, dude, if you don't break that story, that trade is done.
Wow.
He said, done. So now Rick Majerus dies. I go up to his funeral. It's my friend. I'm at the funeral. There's George Karl. I've never met George. I've interviewed him, like standing there with 42 mics, but I've never met the man. I walk up to him. I said, hey, George, I'm David Kaplan. I was a really close friend of Rick's. He goes, oh, yeah, you're a media guy in Chicago. Rick spoke about you. Yeah. I said, can I ask you a quick question? I know it's ancient history now, but did you ever make a trade for Scottie Pippen for Sean Kemp? He goes, yeah, and that effing Jerry Krause screwed me by giving it to some guy in the media. I said, that's not how it went down. How the hell would you know? I said, because I'm the asshole in the Chicago media, and I got it from Sean Kemp's agents. He said, dude, if I had seen you the next day, I literally would have physically punched you in the face. He said, you single-handedly broke up that trade. If you don't report it, Scottie Pippen is a Sonic, and Sean Kemp, with all his off-the-court issues, is a Chicago Bull. You, my friend, saved Chicago.
Wow.
Amazing.
True story.
Wow. You should get 5 more Emmys just for that.
I should get a freaking ring from the Bulls.
If they did knighting in the United States, you'd be Sir David Kaplan at this point.
There you go.
That's pretty hilarious.
Pretty funny.
Wow, man.
Amazing.
I'm gonna have to text you about another story later, because I got to get it confirmed and at least see if you know about it. But
I'm going to give you one more. When I was coaching at Northern Illinois, I went to the Hutchinson Community College quarterback club Thanksgiving tournament. I go to the tournament. All these guys, all these other college coaches, there's 100 of them there. They're all out drinking the night before. I'm like a 22-year-old assistant. I'm not going drinking. This game is at 7 a.m. on Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving. 7 a.m. for a junior college tournament. I'm the only coach in the gym. This guy gets 30 points, and I'm like, nobody around? Well, you're not allowed to walk up and talk to the player. That's a violation. There's nobody here. I walk up to him. Hey, dude, who's recruiting you? Nobody. Nobody? I said, I'm from Northern Illinois. I'll offer you a scholarship right now. He's like, can I visit? I said, done. When do you want to come? He said, well, I'm going home for Thanksgiving. What about next weekend? We got the whole week off from school. Done. He said, if I like it, I'll commit on the spot. I'm like, done deal. The next day, his team is still alive in this tournament, and they're playing at like the 7 p.m. game. Mitch Richmond got 38, and I never heard from him again.
Wow. Mitch Richmond.
You should have set up the interview. You should have had him flown him out that day.
Yeah, exactly. And the funny thing is, his junior college coach, Dana Altman, who's now the head coach at Oregon, he went with him to Kansas State. Package deal. I couldn't compete.
Wow.
Amazing.
Wow.
Well, Cap, it's been so much fun to have you on. Thanks for the stories and the knowledge. Really appreciate you kind of bringing some perspective. Keep doing what you're doing. We love hearing you. As I said, it's hard to talk about Chicago sports without your name coming up. So if for some crazy reason someone who's watching this doesn't know who you are or where to follow you, can you let them know where they can see more of your work?
Yeah, they can either catch me 7 to 10 every weekday morning on ESPN 1000. I work with my great partner. He's awesome, Jonathan Hood, the Cap J. Hood Show. We've got Danny Zetterman and Jeff Meller and J.R. Strauss. We have a lot of fun. I do TV at NBC Sports Chicago. And then you can catch me on Twitter and on Instagram at the Capman. So
awesome.
Larry,
thanks so much.
Text me that story. If I know it, I'll tell you it's true or not.
Okay, cool. Got you.
Got it.
Follow up.
You guys, thanks for having me. And anytime you want me, you've got my number. Don't hesitate. You know me. I like talking.
Cool.
I appreciate it. Appreciate it.
All the best.
Don't go away. Bulls 101 returns right after this.
Look, I don't mean any disrespect. He just didn't play that well, not for a guy of his caliber.
If they don't run the ball here, I'm going to vomit. I swear to God.
I don't really have any recollection of that at all, but I guess perhaps I blacked it all out.
You know, they won, but I'm going to be miserable all week because they stunk.
Wow. I hope you guys enjoyed that interview. I know we did. We were able to do it today. So awesome to hear from Cap, to get some inside info on the organization, the changes. I don't know about you, Lara, but it gave me a little bit more optimism after the trade and after the couple of weeks we've had that have been a little tougher.
Yeah, no, it definitely did. Just because, you know, you hear stories from reporters and things like that that don't have that type of inside, relationship So they're kind of just reporting from like the outside looking in, and it was kind of nice to hear good things about Billy, because there are some rumblings about like, was Billy the wrong choice? Is Billy a player development coach? Did he lie to us? But again, like I was telling Kat, this is a crazy season. I mean, it's a tough. It's one of those things where, like in baseball last season, if a team did really good or a player did really good, you won't take that away from them. But if a player did bad, it's kind of like, well, it was a tough season. It was something that maybe guys weren't used to. It's kind of like this year, like,
yeah.
It's a tough year. So I think everyone needs to give Billy some more time. He doesn't have the roster he would like at the moment, and he's trying to figure some things out. So, it was great, man. It was great to really hear some stuff like that.
Yeah. Tony, yeah, it was pre-recorded. I know, that's why I was in the comments hyping it up a little bit, because I was able to have some time to rewatch it. No worries. Yeah, unfortunately, someone else mentioned the late recording time. So both Lara and I have kids. I'm on the West Coast, and my wife also works sometimes late. So unfortunately, we're kind of stuck with the later time. So appreciate you guys sticking with us at this late hour.
Yeah, thank you.
If you can't stick with us, when we're doing this live, you can always listen to it on any podcast platform. You can find us on YouTube if you want to watch the video version. I always recommend the video version. We usually have some plays, some breakdowns of things, and the visual helps, but we try and make it work for audio as well. But yeah, Daniel, exactly what Lara was saying, and you're saying I agree with. It's the first year, as Cap said, we really need to find out what we have, and I think we do. I think we've gotten a direction. We've gotten 2 all-stars. That we start out with 0 this year. Zach has really taken a leap. I think it was nice to hear from Cap that he thinks that Billy is a quality coach that can take us to the next level when we get there. So that was really encouraging to hear, because we heard from Darnell and some others in the OKC media when he was there that there wasn't a whole lot of love lost when that relationship went south, or they kind of had a mutual parting of ways. So nice to hear from Cap that that he's got some faith in it, and he's better connected than anyone else we've ever talked to about it. So great to hear that.
I think also too, we just got to reiterate that early success having a couple of games, 3-game winning streaks and things, it can't overshadow what AK said. This is a truly an evaluation year. And again, when you get a guy like Vooch, things seem like they should accelerate. But it's still, you still don't know everything you need to know about this roster. And I think that they really are. They kind of went at this, okay, boom, if we can get Vooch, we can get Zach, boom, we know we got in those 2. Now let's see if we can do some things with the rest of the group. If we can't, at least we know what they can do. So if we do ship them away, at least we know what they can provide in our system, what we can expect them to do, what we can, things like that. So even myself, like, there are times after games I'm like, man, here we go again. Like, but then I have to reel myself back in. Yep. Sometimes you have to do that. After, like, when I watched when I watched the game the second time, I gotta really tell myself, like, okay, Billy can't win with this. So we gotta, wait. We gotta see if we can go get a Alonzo or a Conley or a Dennis Schroeder, depending on what happens with that situation. But man, just gotta. I know it sucks because we've been bad for a while. But we have to continue to stay patient, man. It's just got to stay patient because we have the foundation, like you said, Chris. We have the foundation now, so we just got to keep going.
Yeah, I agree. It's been a tough week, regardless of the optimism. It was a tough week. The Bulls had a 5-game losing streak, starting with the Hawks that we talked about last weekend, and then we had a couple losses this week that were disappointing. Zach being in the health and safety protocols this week is not helping. We did get a win tonight, finally, against the Cavs. That was nice, definitely needed. But I know, we were doing the Cap interview while the game was going, so we did have time to break down film. But we did have some film of some of the earlier weeks' games, and there was an offensive set we wanted to just chat with you guys about for a few minutes before we signed off for the night. which is the horns play, which is a pretty popular play. The way horns basically works is it's a pick and roll where you have two of the offensive players come up and set screens on either side of the pick and roll ball handler defender. And then what they'll do, you'll see this clip right here. Kobe White is the ball handler, and you've got Daniel Tice and Nikola Vucevic. They're going to set a screen on either side of the defender. Now, one of them is going to roll. Here it's Tice rolls, and Nikola Vucevic is coming out to the top of the key, and they'll pop. And so then what the ball handler is able to do in this situation is read the defense and see what's happening. If they play it where they stick out on Vucevic at the three-point line, maybe you can hit Daniel Tice as the roller for an easy dunk. If nothing happens, a lot of times you can hit that high-low action where you pass it to Vuce at the top of the key and let him make the decision. Maybe he can get it down low to the big who's rolling, or he can go into a dribble handoff with one of either. Now, in this clip, you've got Troy Brown Jr. on the left wing and Patrick Williams on the right wing. So in this case, we've got Vuce at the top of the key. Tice is down there with great position down low on a mismatch on Kyle Anderson, who, because Tice is playing as a power forward and Kyle Anderson is a little bit smaller, he takes advantage, gets an easy bucket here. So this is one play that they've run a lot this week and this year, but it works really, really well with a big like Vuce who can pop out and shoot, and Tice, who's a great roller to the basket.
Yeah. I think something's important to point out in this particular play is Kobe actually makes a really nice read because Kyle Anderson is playing drop, right? So in horns, like you said, either Tice is going to pop or he's going to roll, and then Vuce will do the opposite of what Tice does, right? So what they're doing is taking advantage of Kyle Anderson with his deep drop. So what Kobe has to do is to swing it as quick as he can. So when Vuce catches it, Tice will have position in the post already, right? So it's just something that Kobe very simple read, but that's what you need from your point guard is to notice, okay, he's playing drop. Let me swing that to Vuce. Vuce will play high-low with Tice, right? So Tice has got great position. He's fighting, and now all it is a one-on-one post game. And more times than not, Tice is going to go. He's going to score down there, right? So that's one of the things too that you want to look at is how they play that pick and roll there, and then we can kind of we can go on to the next one, but that's something that I love this play, and I know you do as well. We've talked about it before, but I love horns because every team runs it. But one of the best things, I remember the lineup came out. It was, I believe, Kobe. Who was starting at the 2? Was it Garrett Temple?
Garrett Temple.
Garrett. So it was Kobe, Garrett. Who started? I can't remember who was starting.
Are you talking about tonight?
Last night.
Yeah, last night it was Kobe at the 1, Garrett at 2, Pat at 3, Tice 4,
right?
Vuce 5.
So everybody saw the lineup, like, whoa, what's this? But I think what Billy was thinking was, okay, I got 2 bigs now. Both of them have the ability to pop and shoot the 3, and both of them are pretty good at rolling. So we can actually depend on horns a bunch tonight, and we could just go off of how they play, And I think that's what he was thinking about in terms of getting off to a great start, because that's one of the things that he's always talked about in terms of his starters is getting off to a good start. And that's why he liked the last unit, because they were a lot better than the unit before that. So I think that's what he was thinking tonight in order to get into a quicker start and have more simple reads for Kobe. Let's run some horns and we'll go at it that way, see if we can get into a flow of the offense.
Yeah. Something that's really interesting, since the trade, the Bulls are tied for first in assists per game. I think it's 28 and a half, somewhere around there, which is really, really fantastic. One of the things that Billy has really excelled with this year is getting the Bulls great quality shots, open looks. He did it earlier in the year. Wendell on those screens, he got a lot of screen assists because he was able to open up those open shots with Kobe and Zach. He's doing it now with Vuce. When Vuce and Zach were there with the pick and roll, pick and pop between those two, and now, as you see with Zach out, he's switched over using this horns play a lot more because he knows that Tice can roll and Vuce can pop, and they can generate easy shots out of it. Because as you mentioned, horns is a great set that can also be weaved into other sets, right?
Yeah.
If the horns doesn't work, if the high low's not there, you can run a dribble handoff, you can run a weave, you can do a lot of things with it. It gets the defense in motion, and that allows you to generate open, good looks.
Exactly. I mean, even with even if you think about like in terms of like if you set up in horns, not only can you use it as like a single screen on either side, you can use it as a double screen. You have both the bigs coming in a double screen, and that's another way to run pick and roll or pick and pop, just throwing different looks, right? So it's definitely like it's like I said, I'm going to continue to say I love this set. It's a very simple set, but it's a very good set for your personnel that you have. You can put like chess. You can put your guys where you want them, and to counter the rotation. That because as you go through the game as a coach and as the players as well, players should also be looking at this. How are they rotating? If we run side pick and roll, where's the tag man coming from? You know, if we run middle pick and roll, where's the tag man coming from? How are they rotating if I dump it to the post? Are they sending somebody from the baseline? Are they sending somebody from the wing? So there's different things you can do with this. You know, it's just some good stuff for Billy. You know, again, like that's another thing. When Bulls fans think about Billy, just think about what he's doing right now. He's making sets easier for these guys. He's making easier reads. He's getting offense going. It's especially when you don't have like one of the things we're gonna miss with Zach is the rim pressure that he applies. When Zach is playing downhill, there's not a lot of defenders that can stop him. And when you play downhill and you apply rim pressure, teams have to rotate. You create movement that way. You find open shooters that way. So, and that's one of the things that I think we struggle with is open shooters. Me personally, I don't think we knock down enough open shots. You know, but yeah, man.
Yeah, there's one of the things as you saw that clip was rolling. This time it was Nikola Vucevic and Thad Young. And Thad Young, when he can pop, he can play that short roll right below the top of the key, and he can make great decisions with it. He's done that all year long. And I really like what Billy Donovan has done the last two games and switching the lineup up, putting Thad Young back off the bench because he can really help facilitate more effectively, which is something that now while I like him next to Vooch in general because I think he's the best player at that spot currently, you could tell that his playmaking and his usefulness was not being maximized as it had been early in the year when you had him next to Lauri Markkanen, for example, because Lauri Markkanen was just there to catch and shoot, and so that could use that playmaking. Now when you've got Zach out, and you can have Kobe White in the starting lineup with Vooch because Vooch can handle a lot of the playmaking from the post or from the top of the key or through a horn set, as you just saw. And then Thad can come off the bench and maximize his playmaking potential as well. So we'll see how it goes the next few games because, I mean, there's more tough games coming up, and not having Zach is going to be a difficult stretch for us. But it's fun to see these offensive sets and the offensive philosophy of Billy Donovan adapting to his players and who's in and out as the season has progressed. And that's something that's been a hallmark of his coaching since the OKC days. OKC had a different team every single year, very, very different stars, different responsibilities, priorities. You really saw in that last year when he had Dennis Schroeder, SGA, and Chris Paul all there. He run those 3-guard lineups. So he's really, really good at adapting those offensive sets. And I think that's something he's also developed this year as well.
To go off of Salim's comment about he's noticing that they're taking advantage of mismatches. And I think that has a lot to do with when you lose a guy like Zach who can give you 25, 30, 40 on a good night, 50 on an excellent night. You have to take advantage of those mismatches now. You have to, in order to get better chances of one, easier baskets, or two, if you're throwing the ball down to the post to Tyson, he's got John Moran on him, they're gonna have to send help. So now you're creating closeout opportunities, which makes it easier for your offense to find better shots. So it's just good stuff by Billy, and he's done some crazy things, in my opinion, about rotations and things like that. But what he's been doing since the Zach injury, which is 2 games, I like what I've seen. I've liked the different sets to make it easier, because if you're going to have Kobe starting at point guard because you need his scoring as well, but you need him also to be a point guard while Zach is out too. And Sato was injured as well that game. But if you needed him to be able to get some assists and get the offense going, so sets like that help him. Someone that can, they're just simple reads. You know what I mean? Like if they're not playing 2-3 zone or 3-2 zone or a matchup zone, if they're going to go man, it's a simple read. Whoever's popping, if they're open, you hit them. If the roller is open because a guy is coming up to play aggressive, you hit the roller. So if both of those are not open, okay, we keep going to the dribble handoff, like you said. Now we're getting downhill on the dribble handoff. You can easily swing that to Chicago action, where you got a pin down from the wing down to the corner. Somebody's coming off out of the corner from the pin down, getting a dribble handoff at the elbow almost, and then now you're flowing into that. There's just so many things you can do. And I think, like, again, I'm going to say it again, I think Billy's doing a pretty good job right now. Who knows, So we'll see how it goes.
I agree. And as long as he keeps it simple, that's all you have to do. It's the regular season. This isn't the playoffs. This isn't a chess match as much in the regular season. And with all the crazy stuff that's going on with COVID, people in and out of the lineup, and Zach obviously in protocols, this is what you got to do. And I think Billy's done a great job at adapting. So I think we're going to wrap it up for tonight. I think we had a great show. Cap was great. If you guys liked the show or you like the show in general, give us a shout out. Let people know on Twitter, on whatever social media platform you're using that you enjoy it. Give us subscribe to the Barroom Network, who is gracious enough to host us. We got a whole great lineup of shows. If you like Chicago sports, we got Blackhawks, we got White Sox, we got the Bulls. Every sport you want here, we got great content for. You can follow me on Twitter as always at KLA Hoops. You can follow Laro at _Laro Hoops. And you can follow the Bulls 101 show at Bulls 101 podcast on Twitter. As I said, give us a like, give us a follow. Let us know what you thought. If you have an idea of someone who you think would be a great guest for us to have on the show, let us know as well. Hit us up on Twitter. We're always open to suggestions. Cap was a great get for us today. We were really, really happy to have him on. And we got more guests coming up. And as Cap said, he'll be back again soon. We'd love to have him again. And thank you guys. Thanks for staying with us up late. And go Bulls. We'll see you guys next week. Have a great night.